Okay, so here we are. Starting again. We didn't do a Rosh Chodesh Tishrei class because it just so happens that Rosh Chodesh Tishrei is Rosh Hashanah. So we had lots of other wonderful influences on Rosh Hashanah and lots of other opportunities for learning and prayer. So that's the month we didn't speak much about. We did the Rosh Chodesh Elul, which was our preparation for leading us into Tishrei. I know there's a lot of familiar faces here that were here then, and I'm happy to see you back again. So we're continuing the cycle, and for those of you who are new to the class, the idea of this class is really to tap in to the particular energy that is found, that is strongest in each month. And each month contains within it a very specific type of energy that is universal. It's cosmic energy that we can really tap into and make use of in our personal growth and in the growth of the world. So the fact is the energy is always there, and it's always our choice if we want to tap into it and access that energy and what we do with that particular energy. Very often we find ourselves feeling things at certain periods of time. You know, you'll bump into your friend, you're like, oh, you're also feeling that? And we're both feeling the same energy, or we're really tired, or we're having a really hard time getting up in the morning, whatever it might be. But then you find that as you speak to people, there's a certain vibration in the universe that everyone's tuning into, if you're aware. And knowing what that energy is so that we can harness it and use it for our growth and work with that energy instead of sometimes we find ourselves fighting against it, understanding how that plays into the cycle of the year and how important that particular energy is for the process. And we go through this yearly process. We do it over and over. It's a cycle. And we talk about time being both linear and cyclical. Before we became a nation, before the Jewish people, before the Torah was given, people understood time as cyclical. And there was only this idea of time as cycle. It was sort of that pagan reality, the celebrating the cycles of the year, right? What goes around comes around, everything is the same. With the introduction of lunar time, we introduced to the world, the Torah introduced to the world the idea of linear time as well, a beginning of time. With Bereshit bara Elokim, the world begins, which means when there's a beginning, there's an ending. We're moving towards something. So it doesn't mean that there isn't cyclical time. We still celebrate cyclical time. That's what Rosh Hashanah really starts the beginning of the year cycle again. But each month celebrates linear time as well, so that we're working with both time as cyclical and linear. And if you think about this in terms of our growth and progress, you could think about it in terms of a spiral. We always talk about the spiral of growth. So as we go through each year cycle, we're not just going round and round like hamsters on a wheel. We're moving outwards. So we're growing as we move through the cycle. So we're not the same person that we were last year in Cheshvan. Through going through the energies of Kislev and Tevet and Shvat and Adar and Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, all the way through to Tishrei, through experiencing each of those energies and working with them and working with the holidays that encompass that energy within them, we grow, we become a bigger person. And as we move through that cycle, we experience it differently each time. So even those of you who were here last Cheshvan and we spoke about the energy, we're a different person than we were last year. We're going to experience it differently this year. It's going to affect us differently. Hopefully we'll be able to grow to an even bigger place from this energy this year. So what is the month of Cheshvan? So speaking about it in terms of the process of where we're coming from, we've just gone through a really intense spiritual high. The month of Tishrei is this overwhelming month of constant spiritual input, right? We're in this state of connection. We're in the state of working on ourselves from the month of Elul all the way through till the last day of Simchat Torah, till the end of Tishrei. We are in a state of constant, the energies are changing a lot, but we're receiving a lot of energy. There's a spiritual highs that we're experiencing on a very constant basis. It's a lot. It can be overwhelming at times. We might feel like we're drowning in the month of Tishrei in this spirituality, but it's also really amazing. There's this high. We're sort of all the way up here that whole month. There's not very much downtime, and especially the way we experienced it this year, having Shabbat come in the middle between each holiday. So we really didn't even have that much downtime. It was holiday to Shabbat to holiday to Shabbat, and there's this like intense light throughout the month. And then comes Cheshvan. And there is, after, we come from a great height, there is inevitably, there is a descent, there's a fall. We can't maintain that tremendous high throughout our lives, and we wouldn't want to either. That would be an imbalance. So there is this necessary descent that occurs in the month of Cheshvan. Cheshvan is also known as Mar Cheshvan. If you've ever heard, it's called bitter Cheshvan. Cheshvan is a month in which there are no holidays. There are no particular days of extreme energy that we connect to, that we can receive. There's no spiritual high that we're given in this month. And therefore, it was called Mar Cheshvan. Also, it is the beginning of the colder months. So, whereas we're coming from this time of this incredible light and warmth and extroversion, in the month of Cheshvan, we start hunkering down, going back inwards, and retreating into ourselves. All necessary. The extroversion of the summer is necessary, coming back into ourselves in the month of Cheshvan, preparing for winter, also very important part of the process. But as we do that, there can be a sense of falling down. The light that is received beginning with the month of Nisan, which is the month of our Exodus, the month of Pesach, and we speak about the spring months as being this really perfect light, and the energy that comes into the world is received very directly. We're just vessels to receive at that time. And the light is an or yashar, it's a direct light that we receive. And we experience that in the way we experience sunlight in those months. Moving into the summer months, the or yashar becomes so strong, this direct light becomes so strong that it actually can be a klipa. It can be something harsh that we have to deal with, which is more difficult. As we go into the fall, the quality of the light changes. The quality of the divine energy that is flowing into the world is changing, and we experience that in the change of the sunlight as well. So the sun is less intense. It starts getting colder. And now we enter into a period of or choser, which is returning light or refraction of light, reflective light. So all this light that we've absorbed over the past 6 months of warmth, stored up within us, we now start to give it back, start to return that light to its source. That light is now within us, and we have the ability to self-generate. This becomes the beginning of this period of self-generation. We have to create our own heat. We have to tap into our inner well springs of creativity and energy and find our own inspiration. So whereas Rosh Hashanah, we were just Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Simchas Torah, we're receiving this incredible energy, and it's just like tap into it and you're on this high. Now we have to start finding this within ourselves. We have to start self-generating. We're giving back. We are now moving into a period of time where we are the mashpia. We are the influencer. We speak about the energies of the universe, right? The masculine energies and the feminine energies of the universe, and it's always about that balance. This month, we are very connected to the masculine energy, which is the energy of the mashpia, the giver or the influencer. The masculine energy is the influencer, the giver, the seed, which begins everything. The feminine energy is the receiver, the vessel, which contains that which is given and actualizes giving it back into the universe so that it can then be given. So it's a flow. And that's really, really important to the survival of the universe. The letter of this month is the letter Nun. We speak about, the Zohar attributes a specific letter to each month, a letter from the Hebrew alphabet, which encompasses the energy of that particular month. This month is the letter Nun. The letter Nun is a very interesting letter. Can I borrow a pen for a minute? I'll just show you the Nun. And then I'm going to show you the Nun. And the final. Thank you. The letter Nun is, I'm sure most of you are familiar with the structure of the letter Nun. The letter Nun is known and is sort of commonly accepted as the letter which stands for the word nefila, which is a falling. And therefore, for example, in the Ashrei prayer, which is one of the oldest prayers that exists, one of the oldest formal prayers that is contained within the prayer book, in the liturgy, one of the oldest prayers is Ashrei. It's actually, in the beginning, that was one of the only prayers that was said. We still say it 3 times a day, and the Ashrei is considered a core, essential part of the liturgy. In the Ashrei prayer, we go through each letter of the Hebrew alphabet, starting with Aleph, Ashrei, and ending with Taf. The only letter that's missing is the letter Nun. The reason for that is because Nun stands for Nefila, and this is a prayer of elevation. We don't want to bring in that energy of falling. But what's really beautiful about the structure of the way the Nun is ordered in the alphabet is that right after the Nun comes the letter Samach. The letter Samach stands for Somech, which is support. So even as we fall, the next letter is always Samach. There's always that support system that's built in. Also very important, the Nun. Yeah, Samach comes after Nun, I know. Sometimes I have to think about that. The Nun, in its structure, is a letter which is sort of collapsed into itself, representing a fallen state. Very important, though, it's not broken.
What do you mean collapsed into itself?
In other words, it's not a straight letter like the Vav. It's a letter which is collapsed. What's interesting about the letter Nun is when you spell out the letter Nun, it's spelled out by using Nun and Nun. By using two, there's probably a word for this. I'm not familiar what it is. Palindrome. I guess it's a palindrome. But a palindrome is not necessarily only the two of the same, but you could spell it both ways. But what's interesting about Nun is it starts with the Nun and ends with a final Nun. So when Nun comes at the end of a word, it becomes a final Nun, which is a straightened out Nun. And this really represents the energy of the Nun, which is both Nefila and Nes, the miracle, which is a lifting up. And the idea is that we need to work through the fallen state to come to the final Nun. That very same letter, which represents a falling down and a being bent by whatever has beaten us down, also becomes the final Nun, which is a letter which is straight, which goes past the baseline. Okay, so most of the letters begin at the baseline and go to the line above or extend upwards, like the Lamed, for example. The final Nun goes past the baseline, which is indicative of our state of falling, of being below and then rising, lifting ourselves up. This nun energy really encapsulates the energy of this month. This idea of falling down and picking ourselves back up again. Failure is not falling down. Failure is not picking ourselves back up again. And really, if you're human, you will fall. It's part of being human. We're going to have ascents in our life. We're going to have descents in our life. We're going to have times in our life when we're on a high and everything makes sense and we see everything clearly. There's going to be times when life circumstances get to us and they beat us down. Whatever it might be, God forbid, it shouldn't be anything tremendous or tragic or awful, but things happen. For example, we lose our job. A person has a job for many years, and they identify themselves very much with this position. And for most of their adult life, this is who they've been. That gets taken away from them, and there's a tremendous fall. How do we lift ourselves back up from that place? How do we get back up? If you ever do strength training or yoga or Pilates or whatever, I think this exercise manifests itself in any workout you might do. You'll find yourself in plank position, right? Whichever form of exercise you're doing, they may call it something different. But where you're holding your whole self up and you're feeling really strong and supported. And then you go down. So if it's strength training, maybe you're doing a push-up. If it's yoga, chaturanga, or whatever it is you're doing, and you're going to lower yourself to the ground. So there's a falling. Once you're down there, it's really hard to get back up, right? That's when we have to really find that power in our core to lift ourselves back up again. But what happens from the lifting ourselves back up again? We find tremendous strength. That's where we get our strength. If we stayed up there, that's nice. There's a strength there. But until we go down and come back up, we don't come into the fullness of our strength. To really get the fullness of our strength, we do need to fall down and lift ourselves back up again. To lift ourselves back up again is the tikkun of the nun. The nun also stands for the nachash, the snake, which we just read about 2 weeks ago in the Parsha, which begins this month, the Parsha of Bereshit, the beginning, where we have the story of what happened in the Garden of Eden, and the snake is very central to this story. And the snake really initiates the downfall. He initiates where everything starts getting crooked, going off. Everything is perfect in the state of oneness, the tree of life reality. Everything is unified and perfect. The snake comes in and starts making trouble. What does the snake say? The snake says, when he blames his downfall, he blames the woman and he says, Hisiani, right? This woman, she tricked me. The word Hisiani is really made up of two words, Yeshani. And really, this is the core of what was the problem with the snake and how the snake was trying to influence Chava. And the idea really was that Yeshani, I stand alone. There is an I, there is an ego, that I exist on my own without a creator. Why do we need a creator? We are Elohim below. We are gods in our own right. We stand alone. And this was the beginning of the downfall, because if he stood alone, then he could choose this and it would not have consequence. But as we know, this is the Nachash. The Nachash said the word Hishiani, which is Hishiani, which is Yesh Ani. We'll go back over it later. So the idea really is that the downfall started with this declaration of I stand alone. I exist on my own. And if we really want to lift ourselves up out of a place where we've fallen, the first thing we need is to release that snake energy. I'll explain what that means. You know, when we bow modim in the prayers, this is a very powerful thing that we do. The Zohar speaks about that bowing as a releasing of the nachash energy within us and a straightening out of the nun. So we're bent and we straighten up. And he actually speaks about that when we do straighten up, we should actually straighten up like a snake. So you're straightening up, you're straightening out that nun. And what is modim? Modim is gratitude. Modim is the awareness that everything in our lives comes from a source that's higher than us, that we don't stand alone, that our success came from a bigger place, our blessings, the things that we recognize as blessings came to us from a source above us, and therefore anything that knocks us down comes from that same source. And what will lift us up is also from that same source. Recognizing that we're part of something much greater is where we get the energy to lift ourselves back up again. If it's only us, and if my success was caused by my own doing completely, right, and that job, then when it goes away, you're knocked down. It's over. But we know the fact that we wake up in the morning and we're breathing and we're alive is a sign that we're not done yet, that we have work to do in this world, and understanding that we're part of a bigger plan, and that both the high that came before the fall itself, and whatever is going to come after are all part of this plan. They're all part of the story. And when we lift ourselves out of that through recognizing that there's something greater than us, then we're actually being lifted. We're connecting to something above us, which will help us lift ourselves. We're tapping into the very source of who we are, and it's allowing us to lift ourselves up. So that's really the idea of going from a state of nachash to a state of Mashiach, to a state of redemption. Nachash, the snake, and Mashiach are the same numeric value. And Nachash begins the downfall. Mashiach is the redemption. Mashiach is the redemptive state where we unify all the disparity, bless you, that was caused by the Nachash, that began with the Nachash saying, I am separate, I stand alone. And we come back to a perfect unified state of Mashiach. And this is the tikkun olam. This is this tikkun that we need to be working through all our lives, is to go from a place of nachash, to go from this fallen state and lift ourselves up. This is where we find our strength. This is where we grow. We grow from the falls. We grow from the highs, but we grow from the low. And we need to have both in our lives. And how do we do this? We need to be a mashpia. If we allow everything around us to constantly be influencing us, then we're just reactive. We're going to be constantly reacting to our situation, and we're not going to be creators of our lives. We're just going to be victims. A mashpia is the giver, the influencer, the masculine aspect, the energy of this month. We speak about each month having a different arrangement of the four-letter name of Hashem. The Yud, the Hey, the Vav, and the Hey, which is the conduit of energy, the way energy flows into this universe. Each month, the arrangement is slightly different, which affects the way we receive divine energy in that month, which affects everything in the universe at that time. This month, the energy, here, I'll borrow a pen again. Do you mind for one moment? Go right back. This month, the energy is Vav, Hey, and Yud. So what happens with this structure is we are being influenced by the Vav. The Vav and the Yud are the masculine aspects of creation. The Heys are the feminine aspects. So we have the Vav, the Yud, which is the original spark, right, which is where divine energy begins flowing, the original giver of energy goes into the Hey. In the actual name of Hashem, the tetragrams, and the yud gives to the hey, which gives to the vav, which then the vav is like the extension of the yud, so the energy comes down lower, gives to the lower hey, which is how we receive divine energy in the universe. Okay? This month, it's set up a little differently so that the energy that we're experiencing is the vav. We're not really able to tap into the makabel, the receiver, this month. We're bookended by the giving energy. So we're very, very in touch with mashpia energy, the masculine energy of giving, of creating, of producing this month. And this really is how we don't allow Cheshvan and the energy of Cheshvan to knock us down, because we are in charge of how we are going to react, how we are going to lift ourselves up. This is where we have to find the strength within ourselves. You know, this thing that happens in the month of Cheshvan, and as we get, you've heard of seasonal affective disorder, right? Where people get sad, literally, from the lack of sunshine. The rain begins, and this is really a month which is very connected with rain. In the Babylonian times, this month was called Yerech Bul, which is the season of Bul, which was rain, like the word Mabul, the flood, which also occurs in this month. We'll talk about that in a moment. All the connection of the rain, the flood, all of these things are very tied into the energy of this month. So this is the month where the sun starts waning, we start getting a lot of cloudiness, rain, and if we allow ourselves to be influenced by that energy, then we can become victims. We can allow ourselves to be knocked down. We need to powerfully find inspiration within ourselves. We need to take all that light that we've gathered and give it back, or choser, reflected light. We have to start returning this light to its source from deep within ourselves. The Zohar also talks about a body part which is connected with each month. The body part that's connected with this month is the intestines, the innards. And the idea really is that this is where the stuff is processed into energy, right? This is where we take the food, matter that we consume, and we convert it to energy. And that's what the work of this month is, reaching really deep. I mean, that's like the deepest part of the body. And really reaching into that part of ourselves. Like when you lift yourselves up, you need to use your core, right? Again, with that metaphor. But that idea of you have to tap into the very essence of yourself. We have to take all that stuff that we've taken in and now start producing energy. We have to start producing our own heat to warm us through the winter. When the world was created, as we read 2 weeks ago in Parshas Bereshis, Hashem says, Na'aseh Adam kitzalmenu bitzalmenu kidmusenu. Let us make man in our form, in our image. And of course, this is like a question in the pshat, in the simple text. And Rashi answers that the reason Hashem is speaking in the plural form is speaking with the angels about creating man. But I find that the Kabbalistic explanation for this actually is even more pshat somehow than Rashi. The Kabbalistic explanation for Hashem saying Na'aseh Adam B'tzalmenu Kidmusenu, in our image, in our form, is that Hashem is actually, in fact, addressing all of creation at this moment. Everything has already been created. Every creation is there except for man. And Hashem addresses all of creation and says, let us together create something which is a synthesis of everything that exists. Let us create a creation which has within it the animal, the vegetable, the mineral, the godly, the energy, the matter, all of it together. And this will be the human. And the reason Hashem creates man in his image, in his form, in the form of everything, is we become kind of a holographic image containing within us all of the universe, which allows us to relate and to connect with every aspect of creation. Hashem goes on to tell the human that I am putting you in charge, Uridu, you should be the steward of all of creation. As a part of everything, we have the ability to go down, to descend, Uridu, the word for stewardship or ruling over is also the word of going down into. The idea that we can descend into every aspect of creation and relate to the animal, to the vegetable, to the mineral, to every aspect of creation, to the godly. We can relate to all of these, and therefore we can be the caretakers of all of them. To care for something, we have to be able to connect with it. We have to have a level of understanding. We have to have a way of relating to this thing. As part of everything in the universe, we have the power to influence the universe, to be the mashpia of the universe. In the Midrash it says that Hashem said, I am Elokim above, you are Elokim below. Powerful. I am Elokim above, you are Elokim below. You have this incredible power to create below, to be the influencer of creation, to be the steward of all of creation. So we start off with this command or directive to be the caretaker of creation. And we know that things don't go so well from there. And what happens really leading into this week's parsha, which we read in Shul this week, is that the mashpia energy became completely one-sided, so that there was a tremendous imbalance in the universe. The mashpia, the influencer, the giver, must have a makabel, a vessel that receives that energy. Without that vessel, the giving actually becomes a forcing of oneself upon something. And there is no receiver, and then it becomes an actual taking from the person that you're supposed to be giving. When the Torah speaks about the generation of Noach, the generation of the flood, it describes this generation. What was this terrible evil? What was this terrible, where did we go off so badly that this whole project had to be finished, destroyed? That this entirety of creation could not continue to exist the way it was going. And the words the Torah uses to describe the sin of this generation is that umala haaretz chamas, the earth was filled with chamas. Interesting today with right. We can relate a little bit. What was this chamas? Cham, it comes from the word cham, heat, passion. There was and Rashi explains, and the commentaries explain, that this generation was a generation of thieves. They stole, they were rapists. What does all of this have to do with this energy of Hamas, this energy of Cham? There was this imbalance of giving energy. Rather than influencing the world in a positive way and giving in a way that was able to be received, there was a forcing of themselves upon creation and a giving without regard for the receiver. So this translated into thievery. This translated into the awfulness of raping, of relationships between, there was interbreeding happening. There was humans who were with animals. So there was this lack of recognition that we need a giver and we need a receiver, that we need this balance of energies in the universe. And this, because we as humans influence creation, this actually seeped into every element of creation and affected even the animal kingdom, where the animal kingdom went completely off, and there was this interbreeding happening between species, where one species would force themselves on another species, and there's this terrible imbalance in the universe. The world could not continue without a makabel, without this ability to balance the energies. Who was the one person that was able to survive and recreate our new reality? And this was Noach. We speak about Noach. What does the Torah tell us about Noach? It starts off by telling us that Noach was a tzaddik. He was a righteous person. And right away it says he was a tzaddik. He had 3 sons. So it seems like we're being told something. The fact that he had 3 sons, how does this relate to him being a tzaddik? And how is this the particular type of tzaddik that was needed in order to heal the universe, in order to continue and rebalance the energies of the universe? In the Gemara, it actually speaks about how a male child is created versus a female child. It's very fascinating. And the idea really is that when the mashpia, when the giver in the relationship, the masculine in the relationship, is aware of the receiver. And the words that the Gemara uses is that when the woman, when woman is pleasured first, this creates a male child. And the idea really is that when the masculine aspect of creation, the masculine in the relationship, is aware of the giver and is giving in the proper way, before taking for themselves, they're giving to the other. This brings down that masculine energy into the world in a healthy way that creates a male child. When there is the aspect of the male taking first, that would create a female child, because that's not the proper giving energy. It's a receiving energy. It's taking. That's the feminine energy. It's where the masculine energy goes off. So anyways, what we're saying is like this. If Noach had 3 sons, this was indicative of the fact that he was not imbalanced like the rest of his generation. He was able to be in a healthy relationship with his wife, where he was aware of her as the giver, and he gave of himself unselfishly. That was how he was able to have male children. That is indicative to us of his status. It says, Noach matza chen be'enei Elokim, that Noach found favor. The word Noach is the word chen, spelled backwards. Noach is the embodiment of chen. Chen is the idea of grace, of lovability. Chen is charm. What is chen really, if we want to break it down? What brings a person to a place of chen? You know, who has chen? The ultimate chen is a child, right? A child is pure chen, because they're purely aligned. There's no dichotomy. The way they behave is the way they are internally. There's no crookedness going on. They're very happy with themselves. They understand themselves as deserving of love, and therefore they are lovable. And that is chen. Chen is alignment. And Noach was in a state of perfect chen. He was in a state of alignment. It says, Noach halach es Elokim. Noach was able to walk with Elokim. Elokim is the idea of Malchut, so the feminine energy of the universe, the vessel. And it says Noach was able to walk with Elokim, which means Noach had this balance. He was able to balance the masculine and feminine energies. Therefore, Noach was the embodiment of how the world was going to need to continue. When we talk about the flood, the great mabul that occurs, the Torah describes the flood as the lower waters coming up and meeting the waters that came up from above. So there was this meeting of the lower waters and the upper waters, which in Kabbalistic terms is the meeting of the masculine and the feminine, the coming together in a healthy, balanced way. And this was how we were able to purify the world and come into a state of balance, a healthy balance of giving and receiving energy. So this month, really, we're doing a tikkun on giving energy. We are the mashpia in this month as we were originally intended to be in this universe. We were originally intended to be the influencers of the universe with a recognition that the energy that we give into the universe comes back to us. So we go back into that state where we are the mashpia, we are the influencer. And through lifting ourselves up and finding the power within us, we are able to rectify the state of the nun, to straighten it out, and to come to bring it closer to a state of Mashiach. You wanted to ask a question, Lisa?
Yeah, I have two questions. One is, I just read when I was reading about Noah over Shabbos about that Noah found pain actually was a reference also to his, because he was the only survivor in the Teva that brought his children. And that was because he found pain in Hashem's eyes. He let him bring his sons, number one. So I'm like not sure how that works in with this. And number two, the truth is though, he had no influence on his generation. So I am having a problem with understanding
Absolutely. So he definitely, that's why it says tzaddik bidoro, right? He was a tzaddik in his generation, which is explained in many different ways, but we definitely, the comment that he was small in his emunah. He said, mikatne emunah haya. He was small in his emunah, which means he didn't actually believe in his own power to pray for all the people. So it's like as the world evolved, as the awareness of our own power and our own power to influence and be co-creators evolved, we were able more and more to pray and take responsibility for, I feel a little bad, to ignore his calls because I have no way of getting back to him. Okay. So this, the parsha that we read this week, and really ending off on this note, the parsha we read this week is the parsha of Lech Lecha. And it's really beautiful how each parsha leads into the next, how each energy leads us to the next. And this parsha begins with the words from Hashem to Avraham. Lech Lecha me'artzecha mimoladecha mibeit avicha. Go, and he's telling him to go forward from yourself. Lech Lecha, using your own internal capabilities, power, energy, light. Lech Lecha. This is an internal journey. And where are you going? You're going from your land, from your father's home, from the place of your birth. And really these three elements refer to the three excuses, let me say, that we sort of give ourselves for why we don't journey to become our biggest self, for why we don't want to admit how great we can become. And we use the excuses of our place of birth, our geographic location perhaps, the house of our father, which would be our genetics, right? Which has to do with our birth circumstances perhaps. And the home of your father refers to our economic circumstances or our life circumstances. And we use all of these as excuses when we go on our journey. We say, I would, but I was born into this situation, or I don't have, I'm not genetically capable, or whatever excuses we might give. And Hashem is telling Avram right in the beginning now, you have what it takes within you to go on this journey. And we know that we've all gathered so much beautiful light over the month of Tishrei. We have within us so much power, so much light to influence the world, to be co-creators to be a light for this world. So even as the world is getting darker and darker now as we move into winter, we ourselves are the light. We don't need to look for it outside of ourselves. We know that we have it within us. And not only can we wake up each morning with a big smile and a wonderful feeling of taking on the day and making this day our best day, even if it's pouring rain outside and we get splashed on by passing cars or whatever. It doesn't matter. We have the power within us to make it a sunny day. And not only that, to bring the sunshine to other people, to bring that light to the world around us. And each one of us contributing in that way really does change the world, brings it closer to state of Mashiach, transforms the falling into a rising up, which is the final rising up of Mashiach and bringing the world to a state of oneness and redemption. And really bless us all that we should find our own inner warmth and heat and generate amazing passion and creativity and healthy light this month and be able to share it with the world.